This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words.
Mike Pounds.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid.
Anonymous, really anonymous.
I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words.
God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
The Wokers.
Nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday. We got a fun show for you today. It's gonna be fun. All right. So first, we have appears we have a situation in Florida, where I know when is there not a situation in Florida. Where actually Republicans got exactly what they wanted, and it's not working out for them. We're going to have fun with that one. We are also going to talk about Donald Trump being very, very confused during his interview. It's a great video. You're going to love that. We also have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is going woke, I think. You're going to love that. You're going to love that. Then we're going to talk about, of course, another case of Supreme Court corruption. ProPublica, again, with another bombshell report about, oh, look, one of our Supreme Court justices taking lots of gifts from billionaires. Gee, big surprise. And then Bernie Sanders decides to take on Amazon. So, of course, we love that. All right. With that said, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps us out as always. With that, why don't we dive into the Florida story? We'll start out with that.
Florida's ground zero for the nursing home. I mean, we're God's waiting room.
Indeed. Florida's impending crackdown on undocumented immigrants is continuing to backfire on Florida businesses and politicians as the law, set to take effect on July 1st, is pushing thousands of workers to flee the state. So now, according to, let's just say, adding to DeSantis' headache, you've got some business owners in Florida, Republicans, that are speaking up, and they're not happy about it. Now, this is according to a report in the Tallahassee Democrat. Quote, in his packing plant, a man named Graves Williams, a lifelong Republican, proudly explained the skilled labor and manpower needed to provide tomatoes across North America, a feat that he says wouldn't be possible without immigrant laborers. Now, remember, probably about 2/3, at least over half of all the, agricultural workers in the fields in Florida are immigrants. So when you have a law that targets immigrants, it's gonna have an impact on that. So now Williams whose family has been farming tomatoes for decades, says, quote, "We all love them to death. We couldn't run a business without them." Well, sorry, Mr. Williams, but you're about to. Turns out thousands of working class immigrants, many of who are residing in the United States lawfully, which means they are documented immigrants, okay? They have decided, screw this, we're going to leave Florida. We are, we're out of here.
That's it. See you later.
Gotta go. You're going to come after, you're going to come after us, or, people like, for example, our family members who don't have documentation that are here, and you're going to arrest us, for even having them in a car, transporting them within the state of Florida, because that's part of this anti-immigration crackdown bill. Well, then we're just going to leave. We're just going to get the F out. Sorry, not sorry. Now, this will create a labor shortage that will, according to the Tallahassee Democrat, leave crops unpicked, tourist hotels short of staff, and construction sites idle. Well, I mean, once again, get what you wish for, right? F around and find out. Now, Williams, who is now facing this issue of not finding enough people to work, says, quote, "How can one man pass one law and destroy all these businesses in Florida?"
Stupid.
Look, I know I'm probably being a little harsh on this guy because he doesn't know. He doesn't know. I'm assuming he doesn't know. But here's the thing. It's not just him. It's not just Ron DeSantis. No, it was, by the way, all the other Republicans who voted for it too. He signed the law, okay, as governor. Now, let me show you one of the ones who did sign this. Republican State Representative Rick Roth, who also now seems to be having some regrets. I showed you a video before. I'm going to show it to you again, just in case you forgot. But basically, he's come out and since, it passed, because he voted for it and got signed into law, ooh, now it's got unintended consequences. Here was Roth after it passed. Take a look.
This bill is 100% supposed to scare you. I'm a farmer, and the farmers are mad as hell. It's urgent that you talk to all your people and convince them that you have resources, state representatives, and other people that can explain the bill to you.
See, it was supposed to scare you, but please don't go. You need to talk to somebody so they can explain it to you, because we think you're dumb. Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great, sweetie. Wonderful job. Wonderful. Good work. You're admitting that you have voted for a bill meant to scare the very people that you actually need and are now begging to stay. Even though this did exactly what the bill was supposed to do, which is to make immigrants want to leave. To what is it? What was the thing they were talking about? Oh, right, to self-deport. Well, they didn't self-deport anywhere else but out of your state, because it's a mess. It's a disaster. Sad. Baby. Let me just add.
Stupid.
Yeah. Now, by the way, it does not sound like unintended consequences at all. No, it sounds like a case of be careful what you wish for. You're going to get it. And again, let's go on and add on to that. Getting back to Mr. Williams there, the blame also extends to those who put these politicians in power that pass these bills. Okay? Now, he added that DeSantis is destroying his business because his business relies on immigrants, and says, quote, "It's almost like he's doing it on purpose." No, he is doing it on purpose. And then he admits that and says, I know he's doing it for politics, but the end results, it's going to be hard.
Stupid.
Hey, you get what you vote for. He said he was going to crack down on the illegals. And that's exactly what he did. What are you complaining about? What's the problem? You did this is what you wanted. You did this. You got your wish. Now you can pick your own fields. Fun. Honestly, look, we warned you about all of this. And now it's happening because you listen to white supremacists. Those are the people that are pushing anti-immigrant sentiment into this country. The ones that are saying that are warning against the brownification of America, or the browning of America, sorry. They're going to come in and they're going to replace you. They're going to take your job. No, they're not. That's not what happens. There is no replace you coming in to take your job and then leave you doing what? No, immigrants are an integral part of our society, of the country, of our population. And yet, you listen to white supremacist arguments, which are stupid, because white supremacists are the dumbest people on the planet. And now look where you're at.
Stupid.
You idiot.
Well done. Look, according to the Tallahassee Democrat, Florida employers in construction, restaurants, landscaping, and many other service sectors are already struggling to fill jobs during what has been a post-pandemic, sustained stretch of low unemployment. The new immigration bills will compound that, many say. Hey, I got a great idea. Why don't all the white nationalists and white supremacists come to take those jobs? Why are you lining up to take those jobs? Or are you not the superior race? Hey, picking tomatoes should be super easy peasy for you guys. You superior alpha males, you, who wanted all the immigrants gone. Well, there you go. Got your wish. Immigrants gone. Immigrants leaving. Now you got the fields are unpicked. Perfect time for you white supremacists to come and save the day, right? Oh, but not you guys. No, of course not. Oh, I guess nobody wants to work anymore, right? I guess it's just part of right-wing culture. Bunch of lazy people. Where are the fathers? Where are the fathers? Now, one more point. The newspaper observed that many business owners still refuse to speak publicly about the measure, fearing that it could antagonize Ron DeSantis. So that's the other thing. Ron DeSantis is a fascist, and he will use the power of big government in order to target businesses if they speak out against this legislation. What do you think he's been doing to Disney? I'm not a huge fan of the corporation Disney. They have massive problems with mistreating employees, all these different labor disputes that have gone on. So I'm not a fan of that company, but it's very clear that the only reason Ron DeSantis is actually going after Disney is because they decided to speak out against one of DeSantis's bigoted, hateful bills. Because that's what Ron DeSantis does. If you disagree with him, he will use the power of big government to come after you. Oh, well, how's that for free speech? It's not free speech. He doesn't believe in free speech, doesn't believe in freedom of expression or their constitutional rights. Look, at the end of the day, while he's trying to crush civil rights in his state, he's also driving the Florida economy into the ground. And all he has is failed culture warrior nonsense. He is a failed culture warrior who is turning the state of Florida into a even bigger hellhole so that he can elevate himself into the presidency so that he can then turn the entire United States into a hellhole. Well done. Moving on. All right. Former President Donald Trump was... Oh, hold on. Let me change my sidebar. Former President Donald Trump recently had a bit of a issue answering a question because let me start that again because my brain just melted down. Ha! All right. Former President Donald Trump was recently asked about the death penalty, and it got hilarious.
A woman who you know very well was in jail. She had 24 more years to serve. She served for 22 years. She had
Alice Johnson.
Alice.
She was in the Super Bowl.
High quality. Oh, yeah. I said, how many years? And she was on a telephone call, and they were involved in selling marijuana, mostly marijuana. And she got like 50 years in jail.
But she'd be killed under your plan.
Huh?
As a drug dealer.
No. Under that?
I don't know what's going on. So, look, complete and utter buffoon. Not a smart person. All right. But here's the thing. This would be funny if it weren't dealing with the state murdering people. Because that's what's going on here. Look, that's what's messed up about this. Donald Trump, this, by the way, pardoning Johnson was a fantastic thing. It was something that I actually supported. One of the rare things that Donald Trump did that was actually a nice thing, a good thing, a W. And now he's talking about, well, okay, but the very law that I'm kind of championing now, the idea, I should say, because it's not a law, it's a ridiculous punishment for, again, something, and I'll get into the details about this, right? But it's just the entire idea of the state murdering drug dealers is absolutely ridiculous. But him undermining one of his own, good things that he actually did is just, it's incredibly on brand for Trump. So now let's get to why it's a stupid idea to kill drug dealers. For one, you don't turn to dealing drugs if you're not desperate or in a bad situation. Now remember, the people that he's talking about are the street level dealers. These are people who are who are completely replaceable. Okay, they're the most easily replaceable people in the drug trade. They face the most danger. They're often the most desperate, and they're often either in poverty or addicted themselves, and deal in order to make money to support their addiction. So obviously, they need some help. Now, the real criminals here are the ones that are at the top. Okay, not only the top of these drug rings, these cartels, but also you can throw in big pharma companies who lobby to increase, for example, the prescription narcotic use for chronic pain and acute pain disorders like Oxycontin. Those are the real drug dealers. That's the real problem. And honestly, if we want to stop addiction, we've got to stop criminalizing addiction and treat addiction as a disease. We also need to eliminate the black market by legalizing or decriminalizing drugs and focus not just on law enforcement, but actually we should focus on centers where people can get clean. They can go into recovery and be able to treat that and treat any underlying issues that will lead someone to doing drugs in the first place. But instead, Donald Trump is going to continue to advocate for the death penalty, except for in this case. And then, of course, he's going to make it about himself.
So even Alice Johnson in that ad.
She can't do it, okay? By the way, if that was there, no, she wouldn't be killed. It would start as of now, so you wouldn't go to the past.
I know, but your policy.
No, starting now, yeah. But she wouldn't have done it if it was death penalty. In other words, if it was death penalty, she wouldn't have been on that phone call. She wouldn't have been a dealer. Now, she wasn't much of a dealer because she was sort of like, honestly, she got treated terribly. She was treated sort of like I get treated. But, Brett, she was treated very unfairly.
Oh, she was treated almost like I was. Very, very unfairly. No, I would argue that she actually was treated far, far worse. But again, the important thing here is the death penalty is not a deterrent for drug dealers or anything else. There's no evidence to support that. In fact, the overwhelming amount of evidence actually refutes that and says, no, it is not a deterrent. And look, again, considering how drug dealers are just street level, they're easily replaceable. Oftentimes, again, people who are desperate, poor, etc., killing them is not going to stop the drugs. It's a stupid idea from a very unintelligent man who didn't even realize that his own plan would undo or possibly undo one of the very few good things that he's ever done as president, and actually, pardon people who are nonviolent drug offenders. Okay. Always trying to be the victim. True. All right. Let's go. Marjorie Greene goes woke. What? Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene accidentally went woke in her argument against Hunter Biden. So, now, Greene retweeted a Daily Caller article suggesting that Hunter Biden had received a very light sentence, a slap on the wrist, and compared him to rapper Kodak Black, who received a 3-year prison sentence on similar charges, in this case, tax evasion, and of course being someone who has an addiction, a substance abuse problem, having possession of a gun. So now, Greene tweeted, "Unfortunately, Kodak's daddy was not president, and he's not white." Whoa. That's actually true. It's true. On both counts. Marjorie Greene went so far right, she ended up woke.
The wokers.
Yeah, she's one of the wokers now. It's so good. It's so good. Wait, what is that?
Woke.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now look, race is a determinative factor in America's criminal justice system. Okay. Now, according to a study by the U.S. Sentencing Commission, black male offenders would receive sentences on average 20.4% longer than similarly situated white male offenders. So now some of you might argue, oh, but see, it's because they've got a history of violence, right? No. The study notes that past violence is not a factor in the sentencing disparity. Violent, nonviolent, it actually doesn't matter. The studies have shown, the data shows that if you were black, then you usually get a harsher sentence than a white person. And by the way, that is also coupled with poverty, socioeconomic status. If you're a poor person, you're more likely to spend time in jail than a rich person. So both of those things are correct. In fact, according to a study by 2 economists, boys from the poorest families are 20 times likelier to end up in prison than boys from the richest families, according to a Brookings Institute study by Adam Looney and Nicholas Turner. More than 30% of men ages 30 to 34 born to the poorest families were either in prison, in jail, or were former prisoners. So now, if you want to point that out, that compared to a black man born to a poor family, okay, and if they get, point out that they get treated more unfairly than someone like Hunter Biden, then yes, that is completely true. And that's actually an interesting point. You can branch off and have a very good discussion about, okay, so now that we know this issue, what do we do about it? How do we reform the criminal justice system in order to fix these issues? Now, is that what Marjorie Greene is doing? No. Is she actually trying to make the point that, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this to black people? No, of course not. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Of course not. No, what she wants is Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden specifically, to be put in prison and use that as a way to hurt Joe Biden. Because honestly, that's what it's always been about. Now, the thing is, if you would do that, then you'd have to consider others who have had similar charges against him. For example, Trump ally Roger Stone. Now, Trump ally Roger Stone actually owed $2 million in back taxes. So that's actually more than what Hunter Biden had owed. Okay. Now, what happened with Roger Stone? Well, in that case, he was allowed to pay it back without any criminal charges pressed against him. He agreed to pay it back, and he paid it back. All right, then. So now, in reality, compared to other rich white people, Hunter Biden did not get off as easily. In fact, legal experts said first-time offenders, which is what he is, are rarely prosecuted for both the gun and the tax charges that Hunter Biden is facing right now. In fact, NYU law professor and former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissman described Biden's penalties in both cases as, quote, if anything harsh, not lenient. Ohio State University law professor Douglas Berman suggested that prosecutors may have brought the charges because Biden is the president's son, telling the New York Times that in most instances, the charges he faces are typically attached to more serious offenses. But in this case, quote, failure to bring some charges when there is no factual dispute could create the impression of a two-tiered system of justice. Now, again, we actually do have a two-tiered justice system, as I just explained. If you're black and poor, you're generally screwed. You are treated much more harshly than if you're wealthy and white. That is the reality of this country. But there's another irony here, right? And I think this is just fun to point out. You know the federal statute that led to the gun charge against Biden? That might end up facing legal challenges because of Republicans. Oops. Federal court in Texas recently ruled that prohibiting drug users from possessing firearms is a violation of the Second Amendment. So if you want to punish Hunter Biden for, again, being a drug user, which he was, and prosecute him for having a firearm, do you not believe in the Second Amendment then? Real weird quandary going on here. So now Marjorie Greene, anti-Second Amendment, and woke. We live in weird times. Very, very weird times. Oops. Look, it is funny because Marjorie Greene accidentally makes a good point about criminal justice reform, obviously without realizing it. But make no mistake, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a fan of actual justice. She's really just a fan of trying to punish her political enemies. And that's what this has always been about. Did I say Dr. Stone? I don't remember saying Dr. Stone, but if I did, you can't do what I do. Stone gets off. Hunter did plead guilty. He did, yes. Okay. Let's move on. Another Supreme Court justice is facing some ethics questions after ProPublica published another investigation. So now the report details a luxury fishing trip that Justice Samuel Alito took with a billionaire named Paul Singer back in 2008. So now Singer had flown Alito to the resort on his private jet, where another major Republican donor paid for the costs of the stay at this, again, luxury fishing resort. Now, the donor that owned the resort is Robin Arkley, who, again, had owned it at the time of this visit. Now, Alito did not include the fishing trip or the private jet trip in his financial disclosure statements, even though they technically are gifts and very high value gifts, by the way. And the report notes that Singer's hedge fund went on to have business before the Supreme Court at least 10 times in the following years. So now let me give you an example of that. This is a very interesting case that Singer's hedge fund had against the country of Argentina. In 2014, the court took a case between Singer's hedge fund and the nation of Argentina. Alito had not recused himself from the case and actually voted with a 7-1 majority in Singer's favor. That hedge fund ultimately received $2.4 billion from the Argentine government. And so that's on their investment. I will get into the details of that later because that case is pretty amazing. Now, that said, here we go again. Conservatives on the Supreme Court hobnobbing with wealthy billionaires, wealthy donors, and then, oh, golly gee, somehow they just end up voting in their favor. Weird. Now, look, even, and I can't prove that it's a result of the gifts, and nobody really can. But even if it's not a result of the gifts, that still looks really bad. I mean, is that not the appearance of corruption? Oh, you get a bunch of free trips and gifts and, luxury resorts and trips and all this wonderful stuff. And you didn't record it. And then you go on to vote in favor of the companies that these people happen to own or have a stake in. Yeah, I don't know. Seems a little bit, little corrupt. All right, so now obviously this appearance of corruption erodes the public trust. Look, let me give you some poll numbers. Last year, following the Dobbs decision, Gallup noted that confidence in the Supreme Court hit a low of just 25%. Another Marquette Law School poll, national survey from March, found that only 44% of adults approve of the job of the Supreme Court, while 56% disapprove. Those numbers actually got even worse in May, when it went down further to having only 41% job approval. Finally, according to a Change Research poll, a total of 82% of voters, this is all across the aisle, they support a proposal that would establish an ethics code to limit gifts that Supreme Court justices can receive. 70% of Republican voters agreed with this. And good. They should absolutely have an ethics code, but they do not. So now, one of the major ways, as I mentioned, again, with all these trips, is, again, you have billionaires like Harlan Crow, Paul Singer. They're getting access to these justices by paying for their travel and lodging. And, of course, these trips also get them in contact with other massively wealthy conservative donors, people who own think tanks. For example, you have Leonard Leo, who is the leader of the Federalist Society that's involved in this. Now, on his Alaska trip, Alito had stayed at a commercial fishing lodge owned by Mr. Arkley, who, again, major conservative donor. 3 years before, that same businessman had flown Justice Antonin Scalia, who had died in 2016, on a private jet to Alaska, and again, paid for his bill in order to stay there on that trip. Leonard Leo, the longtime leader of the Federalist Society, had attended and helped to organize this Alaska fishing vacation, the most recent one. Leo invited Singer to join, according to a person familiar with the trip, and asked Singer if he and Alito could fly on the billionaire's jet. Leo had recently played an important role in the justice's confirmation to the court. Singer and the lodge owner both were major donors to Leo's political groups. So you can see there's this web of connections between these conservative billionaires, conservative groups, activism, in getting people confirmed to the Supreme Court. And again, we can just go back to the Federalist Society, again, making a list of justices and handing it to Trump and saying, nominate one of these people. And that's exactly what he did. Now, Leo did not respond to questions about his organizing the trip, but said in a statement that he would, quote unquote, and I love this, would never presume to tell Alito and Scalia what to do. Oh, me? Oh, using my massive fortune and my wonderful gifts that I shower upon my friends, I would never presume to try to influence them whatsoever. Bullshit. They think we're stupid or something. Now, Alito claims that, I had no idea that this guy was going to, have any cases brought before the Supreme Court. I mean, he just runs a gigantic hedge fund, that tends to make a lot of money in, disputes, in litigation, like he did with Argentina. Yeah. Oh, but, to be fair, Singer never, ever discussed his business interests. No. Yeah, I'm not sure I believe you. Bullshit. Now, he also said that if he hadn't been asked to go on that trip, then the seat would have just been vacant. It just would have been empty. And, that just means he didn't go out of his way to pay for it. Because it just would have been empty. I had to get on that plane. I just couldn't let that go to waste, Who would let that go to waste? Who would turn that down? Who would turn that down? You should. Because you're a Supreme Court justice. He also wrote that prior to the report, again, this was a Wall Street Journal op-ed that came out hours prior to ProPublica releasing this report to go out and get ahead of it and to try to defend himself. He said that justices commonly interpreted the disclosure requirements to not include, quote unquote, accommodations and transportation for social events. So he knew this was coming. He knew this report was going to look pretty bad, pretty damning. And so he, again, tried to get ahead of it and say, no, that doesn't count. That doesn't apply. These trips that can cost upwards of $100,000. I mean, those don't count. Those don't count as gifts. I mean, that I should record anyway. I mean, what? Get off my back. Just get off my back. How dare you try to hold me accountable? I'm untouchable. I'm a member of the Supreme Court. Now, I mean, it really is amazing that they're treating this as like getting somebody a card or a keychain, No, these are massively expensive trips on private jets with, again, huge Republican donors that represent business interests. They should absolutely be reporting on it at the very least. Of course, I don't think that you should be allowed to take these gifts at all. Oh, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. Why are they not allowed to take trips with their friends that are paid for by their friends? That happen to be, again, gigantic Republican donors, business, people who own businesses like hedge funds. Because you decided to take a seat on the highest court in the land. You did that. You did. Yeah, nobody forced you to take that seat. Nobody did. No one forced Alito. So you should be, at the very least, working in the best interests of the country and to do your job. Okay? Not to serve your billionaire friends by ruling pretty much in favor of them almost every single time. And again, a lot of these cases, they choose billionaire buddies. So now let's get to the Argentina situation, because Singer's hedge fund went after the country of Argentina. Back in 2001, Argentina went into default, and so Singer's fund came in and they bought government debt at a very, very steep discount. Okay? So eventually Argentina, their economy recovers, and Singer's firm says, okay, we want all of our investment back plus interest. Now, normally creditors who do this will settle for less, but Singer's firm, he got rich by doing this exact thing. Now he decided to do it to a sovereign nation. And so he took the case to the U.S. courts 8 times over a 7-year period. First in 2007, that was a year before the trip. Now, a lower court had actually stopped Singer and another fund from seizing Argentine central bank funds held in the United States at the time. In 2010, after the trip, the fund had asked the court to once again take up aspects of the dispute. So now, here's the thing. It wasn't the fund just going in and asking every single time. No, you also had adversaries of Singer's firm filing appeals. So now, in those cases, Singer's fund successfully argued for the justices to not take up the case and to let a lower, more favorable court ruling stand. Oh, that's interesting. Now, finally, after 2 years after Singer's fund launched a lobbying blitz in 2012, and after they attempted to illegally seize an Argentine Navy vessel parked in Ghana, the case finally was heard in court. So now this was in 2014. At the time, you had the U.S. government, under the Obama administration, filing a brief on Argentina's side, citing, of course, that, hey, look, we got to work out, we got to look out for, like, diplomatic relations here. This seems rather weird, having this sovereign nation basically get, litigated against by a U.S.-based hedge fund. Now, on the other side, a conservative group called the Judicial Crisis Network that happened to be affiliated with Leonard Leo and known for spending millions of dollars on judicial confirmation fights. Well, they filed a brief that supported Mr. Singer and his hedge fund. Now, by the way, that is the only time this has ever happened with that group, okay? The only time Leonard Leo's Judicial Crisis Network ever actually filed a brief in a case at the Supreme Court on the side of, again, this group, okay? Or this hedge fund. So now, obviously, you can look at that and see a conflict of interest here, okay? Again, this was after the trip. This was after all these people were very buddy-buddy with each other, got to know each other, obviously helping fund their, the ascension to the Supreme Court, the court seat, all that stuff. So now experts argued that knowing what we know, Alito should have 100% recused himself from this particular case because this is a conflict of interest. Abby Smith, for example, a law professor at Georgetown, said, if I found out after the fact that I'd be outraged on behalf of my client. And frankly, I'd be outraged on behalf of the legal system. Well, yeah, we should all be. Charles Gay, Indiana University law professor and leading expert on court recusals, had a different take. Well, similar take, I should say. Quote, if you were good friends, what were you doing ruling on this case? Now, again, that's the defense, not only Thomas and Harlan Crow, but now Singer and Alito. We were just friends, guys. We were just friends. Why can't, as a Supreme Court justice, why am I not allowed to have extremely rich billionaire friends that will pour money on me and take me out to these fancy trips and dinners and resorts and vacations? Why can't I have that? Why are you being so unfair? Babies. That's what they are. Now, Charles also said this, quote, and if you weren't good friends, again, another claim, right? What were you doing accepting this? Referring to the flight on the private jet. Now, in his Wall Street Journal op-ed, Alito defended himself by saying this. It was, and is my judgment, that these facts would not cause a reasonable and unbiased person to doubt my ability to decide the matters in question impartially. Well, now, so everybody who's against this apparently is a unreasonable and biased person for thinking that, hey, that looks like corruption. And that would probably be a lot of people. I would say the majority of the country saying, hey, wait a minute, this looks super corrupt. Especially since I read you the poll where you had over 80% of the country saying, hey, we should have limits on these gifts, that are given from billionaires to members of the Supreme Court. So, I mean, you want to go and you want to call the vast majority of Americans who are against this kind of thing unreasonable and biased for doubting your ability to be impartial when you've been getting lots and lots of again, trips worth hundreds of thousands of dollars from these billionaires. Go ahead. See how that works out for you. At least when it comes to the public trust, of which there is none in the court anymore as a result. I think you're all corrupt. I think that nobody trusts you in the court. And I think there needs to be massive reform. I think there needs to be term limits. I think there needs to be, again, major ethics reforms in the fact that I don't want any billionaires or anyone giving these gifts to justices at all. Again, you're supposed to be on the court. You're supposed to be subject to a higher standards. So than the average person, which, by the way, the average person in Congress, they can't get away with this. No, they're not able to get this, but somehow the Supreme Court is. No, it's bullshit. That's what it is. The sad thing, though, is, unfortunately, I don't see anything that's going to hold any of these people accountable. We know of their corruption. It is very, very, very obvious. But nothing will happen to them because they're not held to any sort of standard. Okay. And this is just what we find out. Yeah, no, that's a really great point. That is a really great point. All right, one last story. Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders has announced that he will be investigating Amazon over working conditions. So now, in a letter to CEO Andy Jassy, Sanders wrote that the company's quote-unquote quest for profits at all costs has been putting the health and safety of tens of thousands of workers at risk. So now, this investigation, again, will look into what has been considered to be terrible working conditions at these Amazon warehouses. In fact, here's what the letter said, quote, Amazon is well aware of these dangerous conditions, the life-altering consequences for workers injured on the job, and the steps the company could take to reduce the significant risks of injury. Yet the company has made a calculated decision not to implement adequate worker protections because Jeff Bezos, Amazon's founder, and you, his successor as chief executive officer, have created a corporate culture that treats workers as disposable. At every turn, from warehouse design and workstation setup, to pace of work requirements, to medical care for injuries and subsequent pressure to return to work, Amazon makes decisions that actively harm workers in the name of its bottom line. He also accused them, of course, of pushing workers past their limits, which we've certainly seen before, and refusing to provide adequate medical care when they end up getting injured. So, look, people at Amazon working in the warehouses, we know that they have an incredibly brutal piece rate. We know that they do not, in order to make that rate, do not get adequate bathroom breaks. We know that, again, the rate of injury is incredibly high. In fact, a recent report by the Strategic Organizing Center found that Amazon warehouse workers suffered serious injuries on the job at more than twice the rate as employees at non-Amazon facilities last year. So, now, look, there are warehouses that are not Amazon owned, that are not, subsidiaries, that are not contracted, and they do not have the injury rate that Amazon warehouses do. I wonder what the difference is. Oh, right, you're working your people to death. That's what the difference is. Earlier this year, OSHA also cited several Amazon warehouses for failing to keep workers safe and exposing workers to ergonomic hazards. Now, in his Tuesday letter, Sanders called on Amazon warehouse conditions called them dangerous and illegal, and demanded that Jassy explain why Amazon injury rates continue to be significantly higher than the warehouse industry's average, despite identification of those measures. He also requested that Jassy disclose whether the company has ever examined internally or through a third party the connection between its pace of work of its warehouse workers and the prevalence or cost of injuries at its warehouses. And either they have not done that, they have not looked at it, or if they did, they buried it. Because honestly, that's probably what they've done. They probably know everything that's going on here, and they know that their business model is harming workers, and they don't care. They consider their warehouse workers to be absolutely easily replaceable, disposable, and since there's not really a union there, it's not really a union to fight it. I mean, they can get away with it. Now, Sanders also says in his letter, quote, if Amazon can afford to spend $6 billion on stock buybacks last year, it can afford to make sure that its warehouses are safer places to work. If Amazon can afford to pay you $289 million in total compensation over the past 2 years, it can afford to treat all of its workers with dignity and respect, not contempt. The time has come for Amazon to stop willfully violating workplace safety laws with impunity and commit to changing its operations to protect the health and safety of its workers. And by the way, as part of his investigation, Sanders also called on any current or former Amazon workers with experience in the company's warehouses to share their stories to help inform the investigation. So I don't know if you have to sign an NDA after or when you sign on to work in an Amazon warehouse. I would hope not. That would be horrifying. But even so, an investigation like this would be worth breaking it. Honestly. Because, man, something's got to give. Something has to be done. You have all of these, again, injuries, these terrible working conditions, labor being exploited in a massive way. And one of the biggest, if not the biggest company in the country. Not only can they afford, again, to actually treat their workers better and not run them into the ground, it actually seems like it's more expensive to keep doing what they're doing. Unfortunately, we don't see that happening. Now, that said, I like this investigation. This is what I want to see from Congress. I don't really care about seeing investigations into Hunter Biden's laptop or Burisma or any of that nonsense. No, I want to see more investigations into corporate malfeasance. That's the real issue. And by the way, this isn't just because, lib, whatever, progressive. No, corporate malfeasance hurts everyone. It hurts right-wingers. It hurts people on the left. It hurts people that are not, don't consider themselves to be political. It hurts working people, period. Overall. Okay? You got to fight against it. We got to fight against it. Now, look, Sanders is, again, one of the few people in Congress that are looking out for workers. There's very few others that I've seen mention anything about this. Looking into Amazon. I wish we had more people like Bernie Sanders that are, actually wanting to look into corporate malfeasance and to hold people accountable, hold these giant corporations accountable for, again, crushing and exploiting labor. But I'll take what I can get. And hopefully this investigation leads to some pretty important hearings and leads to, most importantly, change. There has to be change here. There has to be a way to do better. Okay. Okay. The successor has to be us. Right, but we also need somebody who can operate the levers of power as well, who represents us in the way that our system works. You got to have somebody out there that can take the votes, who's going to be on our side. And there's not a lot of them. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to YouTube. In member comments here, Gabby Mathis says, they called me an alien immigrant. What are they, Alex Jones?
It is an alien force, not of this world.
No, it's ridiculous. No, you're a human being. That's it. You're a human being. I hate this whole idea of dehumanizing people for what? The place that they were born? That's really dumb. I mean, going after somebody, hating them for being born in a different geographical location on this planet. You're going to hate somebody for that? And by the way, for wanting to come over here and add to our country, not only, again, physically, but also adding your ideas, adding your labor, adding your tax money, that you will get for working. And by the way, until you become a citizen, you won't really see anything back for. It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid to hate people born for being born in another country. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I, for one, am glad that you're here. And I'd rather have so many more immigrants than hateful white supremacists. Oh, Gabby, also thank you for the very kind memberships, gifted memberships. Conservatives have to have somebody hate as their core part of their identity. It doesn't have to be. They've made it, though. They made it that core part. Emergency Remedial Truth, has another good side, another upside. Quote, we discover new ethnic foods with every new wave of immigration. I think it's great. There's a lot of great things. A lot of great things we've got about immigrants. I just don't understand how you can hate. All right, moving on here. Nothing on Twitch as far as subs or anything like that goes. Does it even count as a gift if it's under $4 million? Can we sign Alito, Thomas, Singer, Leo, and Crow on an underwater expedition in a faulty sub? Well, not enough. Faulty sub. No, we couldn't do that. I would just, again, prefer that they go out, on a nice yacht trip and go watch, some orcas. That's all. I think orcas, wonderful creatures, wonderful creatures, and everyone should be able to see them in person on a yacht, specifically with those people. Hunger Games 1989 says, sounds what happened to Stephen Donziger when he won the lawsuit against Chevron, and the attorneys and judges were even in the pocket of Chevron. That's right, and they took it to U.S. court. Okay, let's see. Designer Dragon M says, the war on drugs never helped anything. Well, it helped the drugs. Drugs won that war. Police budgets also won. Yeah. So they won big time. Unfortunately. Let's see. Well, thank you those on Twitch. Appreciate that. I had a reporter gift at my job that was valued at $200. It's God's favorite mathematician. And yet, you don't have to report trips worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're a Supreme Court justice. Crazy. It's crazy. All right. All right, everybody. That's it. Thank you all. Appreciate you. Love you all. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for the subs. I will now have to report these gifts. I actually do have to report everything on my taxes, so like every average person. But anyway, thank you all for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Have a great night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.
And why their due process rights are being so flagrantly and horrifically violated.
Oh no! Disappointed!
Obama.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
It's not human intelligence!